Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Search, Swipe and Shop webinar from Southpaw Social Club and Notorious Communications. We're going to spend the next half hour or so talking to you about how to maximize your impact with social search. We won't have time today for a live Q&A in this session, but if you do have any questions for us, you can just pop them into the chat and we'll come back to you on those. But when I say us, we should probably do some introductions. So I'm Kate. For those who don't know me, I'm head of content at Southpaw Social Club. We offer the full range of social services for our clients, from social strategy, content production and influencers, right through to social listening, channel management and community building. I started out in PR many moons ago, looking at how brands can blend strategy and creativity and culture to really get people talking about them before I then moved into the world of social. And yeah, at Southpaw, we work across some amazing brands like Elf Cosmetics, Eurotunnel, Honda, and UNICEF, just to name a few. And we love helping them turn moments into movements on social.
Thanks, Kate. So hi, everyone. I'm Eleanor. I'm the head of performance at Notorious Communications. Notorious is a media agency based up north in Manchester. I don't know if there are any northerners on this call, but if you've not been to Manchester, please do. It's a great city. So Notorious is a full-service media agency ranging, starting from planning through to buy-in, activation, ongoing optimization within the performance area, which is what I head up. I joined the agency start of this year. Prior to agency life, I've spent the past 10 to 12 years in-house heading up performance teams. So worked for big retailer clients like Boohoo, Beauty Bay, and most recently been over at a marketplace app called Olio, if any of you guys have heard of them, before coming back over to agencies to help with brands. So really excited to talk to you today. So what we're going to cover, first, we're going to have a bit of a setting the scenes, setting up the topic, and really trying to convince you guys why social search is more important now than ever. I'll hand back over to Kate, who's going to then discuss what your content strategy needs to look like to tap into that social search space and become more discoverable. And then back over to myself to then say, okay, how can we elevate and amplify that from a paid perspective? So we felt this quote was a nice way to kind of kickstart. We recently spoke to a marketing director of a large online retail brand. They don't really do much brand activity. They're very, performance marketing heavy. Deep pockets, very much a market leader in their space, and they've been spending, 6 figures on Google each month because, they've been able to. And actually what she said is Google isn't necessarily delivering the growth for them anymore that they need because they're seeing this shift in behavior, and actually being so focused on the bottom of the funnel in that performance, direct response space isn't giving them that growth, and actually results are plateauing, just highlighting the fact that, they need to adapt to what's going on in the market, which is why we want to talk to you today. And if we think about the evolution of search, think way back when times were really simple and easy, the era of keywords, users would go to Google, literally search for what they wanted, and brands were able to show them an ad based on that keyword. It was super simple, a nice time. Where we are today, obviously a bit more complicated. There's loads more moments in media. Users are seeing media across so many different touch points and very much living and breathing in social, and turning to social for conversations, inspiration, engagement, etc. And algorithms are very much leading the way. They're being led by our behavior, and brands are able to use those algorithms to show content to users based on those behaviors, but before they search, essentially. Where it's going, and where we see the future, is that search is now becoming social, and actually content needs to be your strategy alongside your media. The best search strategy is going to be, that hybrid approach across Google and social, but from a social perspective, it's a smart content ecosystem. We need to be creating content that's useful and native in those spaces. And more so now, the time is now, basically. A lot of you will have will know about the latest Google update back on the 20th of May. For those who didn't know, they had their developer conference where they share updates, and their latest update was their AI mode. This is ultimately going to flip the model on its head and change the way that brands are able to get their products in front of users. And essentially, it's going to shift more users to social for those search spaces. The way it works is Google are going to use all of the data that they have on a user. So looking on Gmail, location, the maps, what they're doing on social, what they're searching in the space. And they're going to tailor search results based on that behavior. What it means is brands are going to slowly disappear from certain users' buying journey. So if, for example, I wanted to buy a dress, and I went onto Google to search for it, but I'd never shopped at retailer X before. In the current state, retailer X will be able to bid and show me a product, but Google will now say, hang on, you've not shopped with them before, we'll strip them out of that journey. Similarly, I might be a runner, I'm not a runner, but I might be, I go running in the evening. Google knows that from the behavior on, location and my maps, etc. If I then search for fitness wear, they might show me something that glows in the dark. So it's super tailored. If you think about currently search as a window to the internet, it's going to be a mirror, basically showing users what they already know. So it just opens up a huge opportunity for brands to go into the social search space, because that is where user behavior is going to shift to. And we're already seeing it. It's already increasingly being used as a search engine, particularly among those younger generations. So 51% of Gen Z women prefer TikTok over Google, which is a staggering stat, really. Over half of those users are going to TikTok to do their search. I'm guilty of it, to be fair. I've done it a few times. And the reason users are doing this is they find it more relatable. 65% have said that is why they find it more relatable. But it's not just Gen Zs, it's the beginning of a bigger shift. We know that Gen Zs lead the way, and social has overtaken search in the past 3 years as the primary discovery channel. But millennials are in that space, and they're actually approaching platform parity. Like I said, I'm a millennial and I do that. I go to TikTok for travel advice. So hybrid strategies are an absolute must. We're not saying forget Google, because you absolutely need to be there and it drives that demand and the conversions that you need, but you also need to be present in these spaces, because that is where search is going. And even the 45 plus market, they're not necessarily searching in those spaces yet. They're a little bit more behind, but they are still living and breathing on social, and social discovery is continuing to increase with this audience. So just defining a content strategy for social search will just deliver across all of these audiences. So why is social search becoming the norm? It's visual. Video is so much more engaging. 72% of users have said they prefer to learn about products or service through video. It allows you to digest information more easy, faster as well. It's a lot clearer, and it's also more engaging. You get to the answer quicker as well. It's also super relevant, which then builds trust. So content that is relevant to what users are searching for provides them with a helpful answer. So if your brand is able to create content that services their question or what they're searching for, you're giving them that helpful answer, and they therefore then trust your brand even more, and it builds credibility. And then there's also a cultural alignment point, I suppose, in the sense that social is where trends live. Conversations happen alongside a lot of cultural trends and what's going on. People really share what they care about on social media. So by tapping into that and staying attuned to those cultural conversations, it then feeds back into that trust point, the relevant point, and just being visible in those core moments. So really, social is transforming search into a sort of deeper user connection. If you think about the olden days, I'll say the olden days, but as we were saying before, you had your very typical brand sell, which is your sort of campaign-led brand content, all snazzy across all the lovely media channels to drive brand awareness. And then you have your product sell, which is your direct response on Google, show them what they need as they're searching. Social has created this new opportunity to really sell to them emotionally. It becomes your best friend. Creator-led assets, even just your friends and other humans talking about products or services or just topics in general in a more authentic and engaging way really connects to that user a lot better than a brand or a product sell. And then equally, as users are turning to these platforms to have decision support, targeting content to help them make those decisions, again, connect to them because they feel like, okay, they've given me the answer and I trust them. So there is a huge opportunity here to think about, okay, what is my content strategy to tap into this new space of connecting with the user emotionally.
Yeah, so you can see how it's really clear that social search is going to become the new norm. So don't panic, don't waste your time if you're suddenly seeing your traffic dipping from traditional search. Don't worry, just think about how you can start diversifying your approach for discovery. So think about other channels. So TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Pinterest, Reddit, all those other amazing entry points for your consumers. How can we adapt your content strategies so they're made for social but wired for search? So I'm going to take you through 3 ways to do this in this next section. The first being where we find those golden nugget insights when it comes to what your audience is searching for. Then how your content is optimized and designed to be discovered. And finally, how you can borrow creative visibility to get discovered faster. So first then, this digging for gold, what are those key insights to help you drive discoverability? Well, some people see this as the ultimate formula. So having an interest niche, a really strong cultural hook, and search optimization. But how do you know which hooks to go after, and how do you know if you're optimizing for search correctly? Some of you may already be familiar with TikTok Creative Center. There are some amazing tools for brands and creators in there. What people do though, they'll often have a quick look at that central one there, the what's hot on TikTok and in trends, and have a look at what's hot in culture at the moment. But then they'll leave it there, and there's a whole other suite of tools that they're just not tapping into. You'll see on the right there the Creator Search Insights tool. That's one of my favorites, particularly the content gap. You can see highlighted there. So this is where you'll see topics that are being searched for often and they have a high search volume, but there's not a large number of videos currently serving that need. So if you can create content around those gap topics, as they're called, you're already going to be one step ahead of the competition. So make sure you're checking that out. The next, just to the right of that, you can see the searches by followers. So if you've got more than 1,000 followers, you're going to be able to see what topics they're commonly searching for. And it's a really great way to understand what your audience wants and how you can make content that really serves that need for them. So yeah, definitely check out the TikTok ones. And we don't have time to go through everything in loads of detail today, but I do highly recommend, if you're interested in this topic, have a read of Reddit's new white paper on social search, loads of insights in the keyword tools there and how you can win on that platform. And also Pinterest has tons of incredible audience search intel too. Eleanor mentioned earlier, like, don't just forget about Google. It's definitely still got a really important role to play. They have seen a 40% rise recently in long tail searches. So these are the ones that have 5 words or more. And that's been driven because people are using voice to search a lot more. And it's just how people will naturally speak. So those long tail searches, they might have a lower search volume, but their conversion is a lot higher. So we need to think about how you can build those into your plans as well. The keyword planner tools from Google, again, are great. You can use those to find your sort of seed topic word, if you will, which could be a shorter phrase like Paris travel. And then you can use things like autocomplete to think about what the long tail versions of that might be, which could be Instagrammable cafes in Paris, for example. So a really good one to start experimenting with and thinking about how consumers are searching around different topics. Once you have got those insights from those different search tools and pulled them all together and thinking, okay, well, this is the kind of thing I want to be talking about to my audience, you then need to be thinking about what kind of content you're going to make, how it's going to be visible. And I've got 6 ways that you can optimize your strategy to make sure your content is more discoverable in that social search funnel. So the first is always on storytelling, and this is about shifting away from, as Eleanor was saying earlier, that big brand campaign based sell that campaign polished, might be episodic content, and looking at how you can produce more lo-fi, high volume content that's really fast moving and responsive to culture for social. I think what we find with a lot of brands is they've got great products or great stories to tell, but they'll have poor social performance because they're just not adapting their content to social. Their content feels like a generic suite of ads. It's not natively tailored to those platforms, thinking about specific formats, and it's not tailored to the nuances of the behavior of the consumer on that platform either. I also think the other trap people fall into when it comes to always on is just thinking, oh, well, we'll just jump on every trend going and that will keep us relevant and constantly in people's feeds. It won't. Unless you've got a really unique spin to put on that, you're just going to feel like you're copying everyone else. You've really got to get your brand's unique point of view across on that one and think about how that can factor into this always on storytelling for yourselves. So a brand who did this really brilliantly was a brand called Park Dean Holiday Resorts, who some of you may or may not be familiar with, but they're a UK holiday camp brand. They were really struggling to attract new audiences with their traditional marketing model. So they switched to a social first, always on strategy, looking at how to harness those TikTok search insights we just looked at to generate that always on content and then feed their content topics. And once they started doing that, within the first 90 days, they reported 150% increase in revenue. So this really works and can grow your bottom line, not just your social numbers as well. The next area is co-created narratives, and this is all about thinking how your message is expressed. And I think lots of brands have a very centralized brand voice, but the ones who are winning in the social space are the ones who really leverage and champion creators and the community to help lead their messaging too. So, for example, a client of ours, Elf Cosmetics, they will, instead of just saying that their products are long lasting, they will share a variety of different creators and different people from their community doing, setting spray tests and hacks and really put it out into their hands to prove the point for them. It's all about how you show, not tell. Ooh, next slide. Next up is intent generated content. So this is about where you need to think about how to spark curiosity or solve a problem for your consumer before they even know to ask about it. So how can you prioritize a value piece of content first or a problem first piece of content instead of always thinking product first? So for example, as you can see here, instead of just tagging something like spa break, think about how you can expand your keyword research to include more emotional and behavioral queries as well, which might be something like feeling burnt out. So optimize for the why they might need that product, not just the what. And then speaking of optimization, tags is an obvious one for search, of course, but make sure you are using those relevant keywords in your hashtags, your captions, your alt text on the assets themselves. Think about how that can reflect how your audience actually searches. So in the beauty space, again, this might be dupes, starter kits, aesthetic, routine. Think about how your audience is talking about things in a real way. And don't forget to review your scripts as well. So TikTok will also pick up audio and optimize that in search results as well. So don't miss out on that opportunity. And of course, we all know trending audio is good for visibility. So make sure you're choosing your tracks wisely as well. Then we've got evergreen content, and here's where you want to think about tutorials and reviews and product comparisons, those kind of formats that stay relevant beyond that trend cycle and will answer the commonly searched questions for you. We work with Honda Marine across their social in Europe, and a lot of their educational how-to content delivers really great, steady results for them, lots of views, lots of engagement, performing particularly well for them across Europe, complementing the more emotive, lifestyle-driven content that they do too. And you also want to think about how to double down on niche audiences. So think about how you shift away from that mass one-way broadcasting and think about how you can create a two-way dialogue with your audience. So find the ones who have the shared interests with your brand, engage in those micro communities where the intent to convert is going to be the highest. We recently did this for Prop Store. If you're not familiar with them, they are a movie memorabilia auction house, and we help them promote their auction events by collaborating with organic influencers and micro creators to seed content natively for us in very, very niche corners of the internet. I'm talking Doctor Who Discord servers, horror movie, Facebook fan groups, Reddit threads, really really, really niche, guys. But the thing about those spaces is they're often private communities and not indexed by Google for search. So what they do though is function as an internal search engine for their members. So we were able to help PropStore create this long-lasting discoverable touch points within those trusted spaces. And those private spaces are often have high conversions. So again, something you really need to be thinking about. And then we'll look at how we can adapt your creator strategy to borrow visibility and get you discovered faster. So bit of a no-brainer here, but we need to play the game. The algorithm rewards what people engage with, not what brands are pushing. So especially in this age of social search where that user trust is shifting to people over brands, creators are the ultimate currency, and you need to be, mindful of that. But it's about how you use them. Don't try and push into these spaces. You want to be pulled in by creators who naturally belong there. So think about which influencers can you team up with who already have your audience's attention and are already speaking their language. Let them pull you into that conversation naturally. And again, this is such an obvious one. You will all know this already, but your creators need to be partners, not just promoters. I think brands are still falling into this trap though, where they're not giving their creative partners like the room to really interpret brand messages in a unique way to them that is authentic and can help you gain relevance in culture. Consumers can sniff out this inauthentic partnerships, so in a heartbeat. So you really don't want to fall into this trap and need to think about how you can trust your creators to build relevance for you in their own way. And you need to be consistent here, not just one-off partnerships that don't mean anything. So think about who you can use in the long term, how you can build familiarity and trust over time with them, and how that content can continue to surface time and time again when people are searching for those solutions. I think you really need to be in it for the long haul if you want to make a real movement around your brand in this space. So hopefully that's given you a bit of inspiration for some content and creative tactics that you can pick up quite quickly. But now we're going to talk about how you can amplify that further.
Yeah, so I suppose nailing your content strategy is brilliant. There is also a huge opportunity to unify that funnel and sync up your paid and organic to make sure that it gets the visibility that it deserves, really, and then to help drive performance even further. So more so now than ever, performance strategies kind of need to shift upstream where that discovery is happening. Performance has been very much boxed into the bottom of the funnel. You think about performance, it's conversion, it's ROAS, it's direct response, and even the creative, in some respects, is often tailored to just drive, very drive short-term, immediate results. But as users are shifting into this content space and the discovery space, the performance strategies need to adapt because it very much still drives performance. They're still the same user. They're going into these spaces to get inspiration and start to search about what they need. So let's be there and use that to feed in our performance strategy. So there are three things which seem quite simple, but it's just reminding us all, I suppose, and we do this with our brands, remind us that these are really core, and to get these right will drive impact. So elevating your organic with paid, actually reviewing your optimization approach and adapting it where it's relevant, and then actually aligning your performance campaign goals with the content goal as well. So we'll talk about them over the next couple of slides. The first one is very simplistic, really, and a lot of brands are aware that they need to do this. I've seen it, in brands, there's very much a organic strategy and a performance strategy, and we try and collaborate, and they get there, but not necessarily in the most effective way. Actually, having a really strong strategy around this is really key. When we've used paid to support organic content and boost that content strategy, we're seeing 3 times engagement rates versus when paid hasn't been used to boost it further. And actually the view times are much longer as well, 2.5 times. Why is that? The algorithms reward that attention. So as you're putting spend behind it and you're optimizing to that behavior, it's happening more. The algorithms are going to show that content to more people who are going to engage with it. So it feeds into stronger performance. It increases your visibility and your reach in those core moments as well. And going back to my previous point, in the setting the scene section, it will drive that trust. You're more visible in those areas, you're improving your community engagement with these users, and it's ultimately going to drive your brand trust and awareness even further. So then when we think about, okay, a paid campaign, how are we going to actually set up that campaign to support that content? Particularly in the social search space, and if we're repurposing that content for paid, we've got to remember that users searching socially are in the discovery stage, they're not in conversion. So we need to align our optimization approach to this behavior. More often than not, you see, and I've been fallen foul of this in the past, where you get given a piece of content, and you repurpose it and optimize it to a direct sale, but that content isn't fit for purpose. So actually take a step back and think, okay, what are the steps a user takes and before they then are ready to convert, and what are those steps and conversion signals that they're making in the discovery stage, which we can actually optimize to. So as shown here, it's about shifting your optimization tactics from sales and leads up a level. So whether that's, actually on-site behavior like landing page views or add to cart, or actually, particularly for social search, in-platform engagement behavior. So optimize to video views, optimize to community engagement, which is, your likes, your shares, your saves. There's more of that there. It will allow the algorithm to learn a lot faster. There are more data volumes there, so it will drive more accurate optimization, and it will build bigger audience pools who are more engaged with your brand, are starting to build trust with your brand, to then fuel the conversion funnel later down the line. And it's proven to work. When Kantar did a study which showed that when performance and conversion campaigns were supported with engagement campaigns, ROAS overall was 2 times higher than what it was just from a performance perspective. And we're seeing this with our own client base, where we're increasingly pushing them to optimize to those earlier conversion signals. Actually, their overall ROAS, we're seeing up to 70% at the moment improvement. So it's a real important strategy to consider when you're thinking about what areas you're sort of advertising in. And this final point to me is super crucial, and where I feel a lot of brands do get it wrong. So actually consider what the goal of that content is, and make sure you're aligned with your campaign goal. So when that piece of content was created, it would have had a goal. So if you think about a how-to video, that would have been created to teach users, in this example, how to apply a cream bronzer. The goal of that piece of content would be to drive video views. Align your campaign structure to that. Don't optimize it to sales, optimize it to video views, because you're feeding into what that content is designed for. Similarly, the travel example here, and this is a real life example actually, because I went to Malaga with the girls a few weeks ago. I was on TikTok, literally searching what's my itinerary, where are the best places to eat in Malaga, best things to do in Malaga, etc. What is the user goal of that content? It's to share with their friends or save to then look back at and get the inspiration for their trip. So again, align if you're going to push that campaign out and use it in your performance campaigns, actually start to optimize that to what the users are going to do with that content. It will drive significant impact. You'll get more engaged users, larger pools of audiences who are warmed up to your brand, engaged with your brand, and it will fuel down that funnel.
Great. Well, hopefully that's given you a bit of a food for thought. So just wrap up today with 5 things you can start doing today to make an impact for your brand. So the first one being, as we've said, think about how you diversify your search strategy. Build for those channels where users are not relying on Google as the only gateway. So TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Reddit Threads, Pinterest. The more entry points you've got, the more chance you've got of being found. And then you need to find your killer insights. So don't just chase the keywords, really dig into what is going to drive your audience. You need to know them inside out. You need to know what their emotional triggers are, what they're searching for using those insights tools, and you need to know them better than ever, more so than ever now. Then you want to think about how you're crafting that content so it's designed to be discovered. So always be auditing your content. Ask yourself, does this piece speak to a real person in a real moment that they're having? Has it got real context behind it? How can you also collaborate with influencers and creators to borrow their visibility as well and help generate that cultural relevance for you? Fourth, so optimize for those earlier signals in that consumer journey. Don't focus all your efforts on that bottom stage of the funnel. As Eleanor's just said, when people are searching socially, they're much higher up in that discovery phase. So make sure you're optimizing your approach accordingly. And then finally, ensure your creative is aligned to that paid campaign goal. It's a really important one. It's going to maximize the effectiveness of your campaigns and make sure you get more bang for your buck ultimately. So that's all from us. But if you are ready to level up your social search game, you can find us here. So myself, Kate, at Southpaw Social Club, we can help you with what to say, who you're saying it to, and how your brand shows up creatively on social. And of course, Eleanor at Notorious Communications for when, where, and how to amplify through paid media. So thank you all for attending and
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.